It's time to start your morning by taking 5. Here's your host, Matt McMaster.
You're listening to Take 5, a quick 5-minute take on the biggest story happening in Nebraska sports. I'm your host, Matt McMaster. We will go to Lincoln, where yesterday the Nebraska basketball team fell at the hands of the number 25 Maryland Terrapins by a score of 83-75, a tough loss for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This win would not have locked Nebraska in the NCAA tournament, but it would have been massive toward doing that. Nebraska still has plenty of games left to be played. They play Northwestern on Sunday, followed up by playing at Penn State on Wednesday. Both those games will be on the road, both winnable, but this was a really, really great opportunity to beat one of the best teams playing right now in the Big Ten. Maryland had won 5 of their last 6 games. Honestly, they should be on a 6-game winning streak. Now 7-game winning streak, considering the fact that the one game that they did lose was a miracle comeback at the hands of Ohio State. And I lose no confidence in this team after this performance because this is a classic styles make fights type deal. Nebraska basketball suffered a major injury on the defensive end with Berke Buchtengel spraining his ankle severely against Ohio State, and they just happened to play one of the best low post teams in the Big Ten the next game after losing their best low post defender. On top of that, Connor Essegian and Bryce Williams, all of a sudden out of nowhere, 30 minutes before tip-off, became game time decisions. We then found out after the game from head coach Fred Hoiberg that both of those guys had been suffering from an illness. It was obvious on the face of Connor Essegian to me that he was visibly sick. He still went out there and played and unfortunately shot 0 of 6 from the field. I'm confident enough in Connor Essegian's ability to play basketball that if he were at full strength, he would have made 1 or 2 of those shots to the point where it could have completely changed the game. Kudos to Bryce Williams, who reportedly could not sleep the night before, had to get an IV when he checked into the trainer's office for Nebraska basketball that morning, who couldn't go to shoot around, who couldn't go to film, and yet he played 38 minutes and did not have a bad game whatsoever, but it was very clear that he wasn't playing in the same style in which we've seen him play over the last couple of games. Juwan Gary had to take over that alpha role, had to take over that main shooter role for Nebraska basketball, which is exactly why he ended up taking a majority of the shots. He finished the game 8 of 19 from the field with 22 points. Williams only took 13 shots, yet still had 20 points in 38 minutes under the weather. I'm not going to say and sit here and say I'm encouraged by Nebraska basketball because I don't think losses condone being encouraged more into a team and what they can do. But at the same time, I lose no confidence because the deck was stacked against them. They had a terrible matchup with caused by Derek Queen and Julian Reese being really, really good, but also losing their best post defender, Berke Buchtengel, and then all these other sicknesses and injuries and whatnot, and they were still in the game. They still had an opportunity to win. They still were fighting and clawing. And it wasn't like one of those losses they suffered during that 6-game losing streak where visually you could see the body language was terrible. You could see that their heads were in their hands and that they were despondent and they weren't giving effort. No, they were giving a ton of effort. They wanted to win that game more than anything. But unfortunately, it was just a slew of injuries, a slew of sicknesses, along with the fact that just Maryland was able to hit them hardest where they were hurting. We saw a lot of Braxton Mia yesterday, who did affect the game on the defensive end pretty well in the first half, and then that kind of waned away in the second half. And I was impressed with what Andrew Morgan was able to do on the offensive end of the floor. He had 15 points, 5 of 6 from the field, and 1 3-pointer. But you cannot have your starting 4 have 3 rebounds in a game. I mean, it was a challenge, and there were some difficulties on the defensive end from Andrew Morgan during this game. And just one of those things where that's not where he fits, right? He's an offensive guy. He should be coming off the bench, helping lead the second unit, keeping the offense afloat while the starters are resting. He's just not the type of player where you can rely on him to really lock down the post and the paint. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things where They played a team that likes to expose that part of the offense, and they were missing their best guy in that area, along with the fact that their best player was sick. I don't think this loss is any reason to lose confidence in the fact that Nebraska basketball is going to make the NCAA tournament. But I'll tell you something right now. If they lose to Northwestern this Sunday, that will be major voice for concern. Northwestern is absolutely battered up. They don't have their best scorer in Brooks Barnheiser. They don't have their main ball handler in Jalen Leach. It's a team that during this really good run that they've had over the last couple of years of making the NCAA tournament typically only goes 7 deep. And now they're forced to play guys who aren't ready to play. And I would not be surprised if they're favorites heading into Evanston, Illinois. So tough loss, regroup, you go into the next game, you go and handle business at Evanston, you go and handle business on the road at Penn State, and you're on the right path. It was a great effort yesterday. No confidence. Lost by me. I've been your host, Matt McMaster. Thanks for listening to Take 5.